for Dr. Rose Moten.
So in 2011, a man 11 years my senior seemed to show up out of nowhere. Now, he didn't look 11 years older than me. He was well moisturized, well preserved. But nonetheless, he started showering me with all this attention and conversation and talks about the future. I was skeptical at first and very hesitant because I'd never dated an older man. I was only 39 at the time and he was 50. So I knew I had to ask the hard questions. Why haven't you been married before? Are you gay? Do you still like sex? He assured me he wasn't gay. In regards to why he hadn't been married, he said up until that point, he hadn't met his queen. Up until that point, the only woman he felt embodied the characteristics of a queen was his mother. Okay, so you're not gay, check. And even despite that response, you respect your mom, check. And after some late night conversations when he shared what he wanted to do with me intimately, I was convinced of his fondness for sex. However, keep in mind, I'm just, at this time, 1 year away from my 40s, the decade that has been long known as a woman's sexual prime. And as someone who was married throughout her entire 20s, 4 babies by the age of 31, when I divorced at 34, I was unapologetically sowing my wild oats. I was making up for lost time. So before I could commit to date this man, I needed to collect some data. I'm a researcher. So it's the second or third date, you be the judge, but he invites me back to his place. And he leaves the room to go get some wine, and he says to me, "Make yourself more comfortable." But what I heard was, "Take off all your clothes." That's my ideal of comfort. The look on this man's face when he came back in that room and I'm down to my bra and panties, that should have told me everything. And you got to keep in mind, this is the era of that book. Y'all remember that book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man? This was the era of the popularity of that book, and women everywhere were walking around wearing this 90-day rule on their chest like a badge of honor, as if adhering to anything less than 90 days made you less than a lady. As if you couldn't be a queen and also own your sexual expression at the same time. As if for women, sex was transactional, that we didn't enjoy it, we only did it to get a man to do something for us. That wasn't my testimony. Not at all. I'm of the belief that time is a commodity, and the idea of spending 3 months with someone you're interested in, not knowing if there's some sexual compatibility there, that's a bad investment. But I'm happy to say after that night, everything went fine, the sex was fine, so we could proceed. The next year, was whirlwind. I mean, I was, as psychologists like myself, but I didn't realize, love bombed. I'm talking flowers to the office or home all the time. I mean, public declarations of his love for me. Within a year, we were engaged. He proposed on Ocean Drive in Miami the same night the Miami Heat won their first NBA championship. He got down on one knee, ring in hand, and he said, "I want you to be my queen." We were married 8 months later, beautiful beachfront wedding in Cancun. And I tell you guys, just as soon as that title changed, just as soon as I went from girlfriend to queen, this man became somebody unrecognizable, like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I mean, all that affection and love just went away. The sex decreased exponentially. There was no more initiation on his part. And when I would initiate, he would become mean, angry, distant, give me the silent treatment. We were in therapy within a year of getting married. One day after one of our therapy sessions, he didn't like the way it went. He felt like the therapist, who was a man, was teaming up on him. And he comes to me and he says, we can experience intimacy by going for walks and holding hands. And out of my frustration, I said, after we fuck, right? That response garnered me another 3 weeks of silent treatment, right? But while he's giving me the silent treatment at home, he's on social media, on Facebook, sharing pictures of me talking about his beautiful queen and how much he loves his queen. That's why I don't believe nothing that you see on social media. What's happening behind closed doors is different. That's when the word queen started being a trigger for me. That started being a trigger for me. I mean, this marriage that barely got off the ground crashed and burned before it could even take off. So here I am, I'm emotionally scarred. I am 20 pounds heavier than I was when I went into marriage. I replaced sex with chocolate and all my emotional deprivation, I guess I just ate it, right? I was still in my sexual prime, and I'm not even sure if all of this is still working because it's been so long. In comes the man 7 years my junior from New York. Our paths had crossed early in the spring at a polo match I attended in New York, and he was beautiful. We stopped and took a quick picture together, but we never exchanged numbers. But later that summer, his face comes across my Facebook feed as people you may know. That's what I said. I messaged him the picture we took together, and the conversations began. Hello, Queen. That's how he greeted me in our first conversation. Now, it was something about the way he said it that neutralized any triggering effect that Queen had on me. Let me tell you ladies something, some of you gentlemen too in this audience. You have not been called a queen until you've been called a queen by a man from Brooklyn with that BK accent sounding like Denzel himself, right? So, the conversations just began. I mean, we're talking now every day. We're FaceTiming. We're talking at night. Within weeks, he's inviting me to a benefit he's putting on in New York. And I tell you something, I'm feeling like myself again. It was something even about the conversations that were just so welcoming and so fulfilling. Even that 20 pounds I found in that sexless marriage, they fell off like that with no effort. And it was like within a few weeks he's invited me out there, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm having this type of response over the phone, what is it going to be like when we're together? So within weeks, I'm flying out to New York. Hello, Queen. That's how he greeted me in the hotel lobby. The next 3 days was worth every 616 miles of air travel to New York. I mean, fun. It was just what the doctor ordered. Fun, freedom, just friendship. And we knew the challenges of a long-distance relationship. So we agreed we would just focus on that. We would focus on the friendship and the fun and honesty. The honesty, that's what we would focus on. And everything went well for a while. Then this man who had so much confidence, whose confidence accented his accent, started to become controlling, demanding. One day I'm visiting him in New York, and we're on our way out to go meet friends of his, and I put on some red lipstick, and he looks at me and he says, "Take it off." That's what I said. I said, huh? He says, "My grandmother told me women who wear red lipstick are fast." I said, "I am fast. I thought we established that from the beginning." Then he's talking about pictures I'm putting online. That's too sexy. You should take that down. I'm like, let me tell y'all something. The queen in chess is the most powerful piece on the board. She is not intimidated by anyone. So I politely took my crown off and I bowed out of that relationship. I continued to date here and there. You know, by this time, I'm like getting to my mid-40s. But I started spending more time with my girlfriends, right? We would travel together, go to concerts together. We would close down and shut down restaurants over martinis, laughing over the unsolicited dick pics that would be sent to us. Fellas, let me tell y'all something. Never, ever, ever send a picture of your business to a woman you're not in a relationship with. Within 0.02 seconds, that picture will be transmitted to no less than 7 of her friends who will all commence to critique that picture and give you a new nickname based on what they agree it looks like. Raw Dog Ronnie, Lazy Larry, Two-Tone Tony, Shower Not a Grower, or Grower Not a Shower Steve. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But spending time with my girlfriends was so healing. It was so healing. When we called each other queens, we meant it. It was no falsehood or manipulation there. You know, it was something that just made us feel good, especially in the times that we needed it most. Now, it was around this time, too, I started noticing a difference in our conversations. You know, we're still having the lighthearted conversations, but conversations are becoming more serious now. One day, while walking on the Riverwalk to Shane Park with a girlfriend of mine who was a widow and had recently started dating a man 20 years her senior, right? She asked me a question. She said, "What do you do about vaginal dryness?" I said, "What?" She said, "You know, the pain, the irritation that comes along with sex, what do you do about it?" I said, "I don't have that issue." Then she looked at me like she really didn't believe me. And I'm looking at her like, "Girl, that's unfortunate, right?" I remember thinking on the way home that it must be something like hypertension that runs in families. Because I had never once heard my 2 older sisters or my mom when she was living complain of such. And it wasn't long after that, I'm at another event, all women's event. And the conversation's being dominated. These women were just a few years older than me, and they're talking about menopausal mood swings and insomnia. And they're talking about hot flashes. What is going on here? I thought to myself. Out celebrating a friend's 48th birthday, one of her guests confided in me. She said, "I'm so afraid my husband's gonna leave me." I said, "What?" She said, "We haven't had sex in a year." Another woman chimed in, "It's been 6 months for me. My husband doesn't understand. It's too painful. It's too irritating." I couldn't contribute anything to this conversation. This was around the time Cardi B's song came out, WAP, WAP. And I was team Cardi B like the 7 C's, right? I was proud of what was going on. So I had nothing to offer. And it was shortly after this time that I met my guy, my Reggie. We had known each other. I actually did a love story a few years back. You can go back and look at it. But we had known of each other since high school. He was an upperclassman that, I always thought was cute. And with the advent of social media, we both were able to peek into each other's lives. But, that's all we did, kind of just look at each other from afar. Then after crossing paths in 2018, after crossing paths in 2019, the conversations began, but they were mostly business related. But very early on, we realized that we shared so much. We shared just core values. We shared a love for community. We shared similar work ethics. And I'm like, I'm really digging this guy. He's checking off all these boxes. And the conversations just became more frequent. And best of all, he never called me queen. But oddly enough, I always felt like a queen in his presence. From the first date, the chemistry was off the chart. So here I am now, 47, and I'm having the best sex of my life, right? I'm talking wake up cooking grits, eggs, pulling out the Belgian waffle maker type of sex, right? I'm talking about waking up on the floor, don't know how you got there type of sex the next morning. I'm talking about we can go for walks and hold hands and have sex. Type of sex. The type of sex where you're free to be yourself, your central self, without a person just thinking you some type of weirdo. In the game of chess, the queen has more freedom than any other piece on the board. And with this man, I felt and still feel freer, and the freedom to be my true, authentic self without having to hide any parts of that. And it felt so good. So you can imagine, if I'm having this experience, I'm wondering what's going on with all the women around me. Then 49 and a half hit. And my girl started betraying me. I don't know what's going on, automatically, men are thinking, guys are thinking, is it me? I'm more attracted to him at this point than I was in the beginning, and our emotional and sexual bond was just getting stronger and stronger. So I don't know what's going on. And I go to my GYN, and she examines me, and she says, oh yeah, you're in perimenopause. Huh? And she's yeah, I see tearing down there. Yeah, you're not as elastic as you used to be. It was like a game to her. I'm like, what? She's like, use some coconut oil. Huh? That's like the prescription, coconut oil? That didn't work. I'm going back and forth. For 6 months, I went back to this doctor, back. And it's like everything that was suggested just made it worse. One day, out of frustration, I look at Reggie and I look him deep in the eyes and I say, Reggie, I think I need a vagina transplant. And he looks at me, the Scorpio that he is, and he says, can I pick out the new one? I go back to my doctor, and this time I'm refusing to leave. I'm gonna do a sit-in. I'm gonna chain myself to them stirrups in her office, because I'm not leaving until I get some answers or reprieve. And it was in this visit that she shared with me a trial study she had been part of an all-natural product that was showing amazing benefits for women who are perimenopausal or menopausal. And, she's telling me how it's just shown to restore a lot of the same functioning, and it's all natural. And she says, but there's one catch. And I'm like, what is it? And she says, it's not covered by insurance. I don't care at this point, right? I don't care. And so I get the product, and within months, I'm back to myself again. My WAP is back, y'all. I'm like, yes, right? And I'm sending pictures of this product to every woman I've encountered over the last 5 years, who have divulged in me their struggles. I don't know if it was ego or lack of understanding that I didn't really appreciate what they were going through at that time. But at this point, having experienced it myself, the empathy was there. And I wanted every woman who may be experiencing this to be able to get some relief from it. See me after the show. Growing up, the only thing we were told about menopause was hot flashes, right? And the end of your period, like the change of life. That's all I knew about it. Our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, they did us a disservice by not sharing, not talking about this topic. So we will be more prepared. I have 2 daughters now, and I'm always telling them, they always say TMI, but I'm like, you want to know this information, because when you get my age, I want you to be able to advocate for yourself. And at this point in life, that's what I want to help women do. At this point, at this stage, to help them advocate. I shouldn't have had to go to my doctors for upwards of 8 months to find answers to this. So we just have to learn as queens to advocate. Research consistently shows the health benefits of remaining sexual well into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Even if you don't have a partner. Did y'all hear that? Some of y'all didn't hear that. I'm going to say it again. Even if you don't have a partner, you can remain sexual. And I will reflect it. During this time, I reflected back on a time my dad took us to visit his grandmother. My great-grandmother, Lovey Moten Westmoreland, lived to be 106. And when my dad took us to visit her, still in her own home at 103, still, walking around, making us oatmeal cookies and lemonades when we visited, she introduced us at 103 to her boyfriend. He was a younger man, 90. But I like to think whatever motivated her to still desire to have a partner in her life contributed to her longevity. In the game of chess, the queen has more freedom, more power, more mobility than any other piece on the board. And what I want women to understand is that we too, during this change of life, can embrace it as a celebration to our freedom, our power, our wisdom, our mobility. I'm no longer triggered by the word queen. When my girlfriends call me a queen, when my guy treats me like a queen, it's empowering. It's a nod to my femininity. It's a nod to my power, to my wisdom, to my freedom. It automatically causes me to lift that chin up a little higher and show off this crown on this head. Thank you.
Dr. Rose Moten.